because he's already dead. He taps on the window.
This is genuinely, without a doubt, the most insane story I've ever heard in my life. But I know that most people don't have the time or the patience to watch a 52-part series where most of the videos go for almost 10 minutes each. So in this video, I am not going to be giving a complete rundown of Reese's story. And this is certainly not going to be a recap of every single moment that she recalled that happened in her relationship within this series. All this video is to show you guys all the what the fuck moments that I had while I watched this series. So what I suggest you go and do is quickly pause this video and grab yourself the biggest tub of popcorn that you can find. And let's dive on in. Risa says that she meets Legion, which is the main antagonist of this entire story, in March of 2020.
So I met my ex-husband around March 4th of 2020.
And this is a very important date for the rest of the video, so keep that in mind. So on their very first date, he's already lying because he tells her, hey, I play for the Arena Football League.
And then he explained that he also did arena football, but only did it for about 2 or 3 years. He claims that while he was doing arena football, the team that he was on won a championship. But again, keep in mind, I don't know anything about arena football. So I was like, okay, I didn't know that they had championships. And he was like, he got a little offended, like, yeah, they got championships. And, he was on that team.
Well, that's great, right? Well, no, because people in the comments were telling her that the company shut down 4 years ago due to bankruptcy. So this man is already lying about winning a championship in a football team that he could have possibly never even been a part of. But because she didn't really know anything about the Arena Football League, she didn't ask him too much about it. So they hit it off. But because of the COVID lockdown and because of the fact that they both liked each other and wanted to keep seeing each other, he decides to move in with her.
When he came to my house, I had a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath townhome. He was in his studio. And I say that to say that I did not realize inviting him to my home probably made his eyes go, oh shit, she's a keeper. She got this 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath townhouse, and I'm in like a little studio. Yeah, let me go ahead and pursue this. What I need to do to quarantine here.
Obviously, he's taking advantage of the situation and is using her. And because he can use her, he decides that this is the woman that he's gonna marry. And so they start looking for a house to move into.
He really liked the house. He was like, you know what, we'll put an offer in on the house. He was like, if you like it, because again, it was COVID, we weren't gonna be able to see the house in person. So he said, I'll put an offer in. We'll see if it's accepted. I said, okay. So he puts an offer in. He's telling me he put an offer in. And again, this is April 2020. This is before we got married. So at the time, he was my boyfriend.
We're in April. Y'all met and went on your first date in March. This is just textbook love bombing. So he makes an offer on a house, okay? And he tells Risa that they're closing in towards the end of May.
Then he said that we were set to close the end of May. We were set to close the end of May. He told me it was going to be a virtual closing. You're probably like, what the hell is a virtual closing? Because again, he's saying because of COVID, people are not closing in the office. They're doing a virtual closing where you would need to electronically sign the paperwork. This is what he's telling me. And so he was like, we're set to close like just before Memorial Day.
But what do you know? Come June, and the house is off the market. That's great, right? Risa and Legion found a new house. However, he wasn't the one who took the house off the market. And he lies directly to her face about why the deal didn't fall through.
Around June 5th, I looked at the house again on realtor.com. It showed that the house was off the market. And I remember being like, okay, wait, what does that mean? What does that mean? Because ex-husband is telling me we're about to close on the house. We're about to close. It's our house. We got furniture, da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da. So it shows the name of the real estate agent for the seller. I called her and I said, my husband and I, even though I wasn't married, my husband and I were looking at this house at 123 Main Street. And we really wanted to tour it, but now I'm showing it's off market. And I said, oh, it closed June 4th? I was like, really? But the answer was that it was an older white couple. Sure enough, he came home. He didn't really say anything that day. The next day I asked him about the house. And he said, my friend, the realtor, he was like, I'm talking to him because something's going on with the interest rate.
So he literally lied about the ability to be able to buy a house because he just lacked the funds. And then on top of that, he lied about why he couldn't get the house. Oh my God. Something else that I also found to be genuinely fucking bizarre is even after this man knew that he couldn't provide housing for Risa, he still wanted to convince Risa that he had the money to be able to buy her a new car. And it wasn't from the Facebook marketplace, okay? This was an Audi. He promised her an Audi.
I loved the Q8. Loved it, loved it, loved it. But I was tired of test driving cars. By this point, I had test driven so many cars. Our weekends were spent either looking at a house or test driving cars. So basically what ends up happening is we leave. He has the printout. He calls the bank, or he calls his financial advisor, who does have a name. The financial advisor's name is Eric. I feel comfortable using certain people's names, especially if we find out they didn't exist.
Go ahead and run that back for me. You said what? Especially if we find out they didn't exist? So now there are characters in this story that we have to question if are even real or not.
So he calls Eric. He tells Eric in front of me, hey, I need to transfer $72,526, whatever the amount was, because I'm buying a car for my fiance. This is the bank account information. Do you need me to give it to you over the phone, or do you need me to email it to you? Pause. I can't hear what the person's saying, but that's what he would do. Do you need me to give it to you over the phone, or can I email it to you? Okay. All right, give me a few minutes and I'll go ahead and email it to you. All right, let me know. I'll call you back to find out if you received it. Okay, hang up. So I'm hearing this because, again, I'm not paying attention to, did I hear anybody on the other phone? Did I hear anybody on the other end?
She's literally questioning if he's even talking to anybody on the other line, because that implies he would seriously just be sitting there having a conversation with himself. That is schizophrenia.
He called me at work the next day to tell me that the money was sent to Audi, that he called Audi and he confirmed with Audi that they received the money. What he told me is that the car is going to be delivered to the house. So he said, okay, well, let me call them back and change the delivery date. Can you be home, or can you do a half day? So he's asking me, can you work a half day so that they can deliver the car and you will be home for it? I said, yes, that's fine. I'm at home the next day. He told me the car would be delivered between the hours of 1 and 3. Obviously, between 1 and 3, nothing happened. So 3 o'clock, I called him. I said, it's 3 o'clock. No one ever came with the car. What's going on? And then I remember I was like, well, do I need to call Audi myself? Because I thought that you handled it. But if you didn't handle it, do I need to call them? And so whenever I would suggest I will handle it, he would get very, very defensive. Red flag number 472.
This man got so defensive because he knew that if Risa called up the dealership, the car dealership, like she called up the real estate, she would find out that there was no car that was purchased, that there would be no car that would be delivered to her house. And it terrified him to be caught in yet another lie.
So he was like, no, I will call Audi. Don't do anything. I'll call Audi and find out what's going on. Okay. He calls me back and says, yeah, the car was stuck on the truck in Spartanburg because apparently that's where their deliveries come from. So when he told me this, I was in the kitchen laughing. So he said, you know, the car's in Spartanburg. It should be delivered this weekend. The weekend came, he had a whole other excuse. So this is where I'm going to interject what I believe was happening. I believe that my ex-husband is the type of person, he gets off on you being excited about something that he knows you will never get. So I believe that he enjoyed going to car dealerships. He enjoyed watching me test drive a car and get excited about it, knowing I was not going to get it. It is the level of cruelty that I still cannot comprehend.
Legion, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but at some point or another, it can't just be your word that she hangs on anymore. There needs to be physical proof of this car. You've bought one for her and then convince her to take the day off from work so she can be there for the delivery of the car. So I don't know where he thought he was going with this. You knew there wasn't gonna be a car, so why make her do all of this? Then, in part 18, she is at a nail salon getting her pedicure done. And out of nowhere, out of the blue, he texts her, hey, so someone just showed up to the house to see you.
I'm in the chair getting a pedicure and I get a text message from my husband saying someone was just at the house looking for you. And I'm like, who was looking for me? Who was it? I don't know. I think it was some dude you used to mess with. I was like, what are you talking about? He was like, I'm telling you, some guy just came to the house looking for you. I told him you were not here. So at this point, y'all, I'm in the chair at the salon. I'm freaking out because I'm like, who the fuck has the audacity to come to my home unannounced, uninvited, talking about they're looking for me? Once I get home, I'm like, what are you talking about? What happened? And so I'm frazzled in a way. And he's calm. He was like, yeah, it was a black Dodge Charger. They pulled into the driveway. They backed in. They backed in as if they had been here before. So clearly this was someone who's been to your house. He got out the car. He said, I opened the door and I went out there and I said, is there something I can help you with? And he said, the guy said, I'm looking for, and gave him my name. And he said, I'm sorry, she's not here. And he was like, oh, okay. All right then. And just got in the car and drove off. I was like, are you sure that it wasn't law enforcement? Like, was it the sheriff's office trying to serve me with a lawsuit for a credit card I didn't pay? He was like, no, he was in regular clothes. He was like, and it was not a police car. And so I'm just like, who the heck could this be? And he was like, I know who it was. And I said, who? He was like, I think it was your ex. I said, what ex? So then Legion says to me, you know what? The way that you reacting to this is real suspect. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He was like, you over here freaking out. I told you I took care of it. I told you it was fine. And you over here freaking out, which makes me wonder, what have you been up to?
My dog, you just described an incredibly brief interaction you had with this man. He showed up. He asked for Risa. You said that she wasn't there and he leaves. That's literally all she knows about the story. And now you want to be all accusatory because she has no idea who showed up at her house unannounced. That would make anyone feel nervous or freaked out, especially if it's out of the blue and you're not expecting them. And it's strange to expect any other reaction out of your girlfriend. You've just put her on edge, man! Cause what if it happens again? And why did it happen in the first place? But that's just the thing. It's never going to happen again because it never even happened in the first place.
So, I asked him, what does the guy look like? He was like, why does it matter? I said, what the fuck does he look like?
What do you mean, why does it matter? You just said it was her ex. So of course it matters. But even if it wasn't her ex, what's the problem in asking what somebody looks like?
So Legion proceeds to give me the most generic description you can give. He was like, well, he was shorter than me. Ex-husband is about 6'3", 6'4". He was shorter than me. He was brown skinned. I said, did he have a hat on his head? He was like, nah, he ain't wear a hat. So in my mind, I am mentally going down a list of every possible man it could be. And it was only like 4 men. I had been in that house about 3 or 4 years at this point. So I knew all of the people, and I'm talking about from maintenance down to ex-boyfriends. It was a total of like 4 men. So when he said that it was a black Charger, I immediately was like, okay, I know that crosses out one. He said he was shorter than him. All of them were shorter than him. I said, did he have a hat on his head? He said, no, that crossed out one because one in particular was a maintenance guy who always wore a hat on his head because he had like a bruise or something and he was just self-conscious about it. So he always wore a hat. That leaves 2. So I said, was he muscular or was he skinny? So Legion's getting all frustrated. I said, just answer the question. He was like, well, he was kind of in between. I said, so was he light skinned or was he dark skinned? He was like, I told you he was brown skinned. I said, was he my complexion? He said, no, he was brown skinned. That eliminates one. So now there's one left. And so he was like, I know it was your ex. I know it was your ex. And I was like, that don't make no sense because the ex that in my mind, I'm saying this, the ex that I had dated, he and I had no contact with each other. And he was not the type to just pop up at your house. That ain't his style. Not to mention, and I ain't tell Legion this, that man would not be caught dead driving a Dodge Charger. He hated Chargers because he drove it as a patrol car.
So she's eliminated all possible suspects that it could possibly be in her head. But what really puts the final nail in the coffin is the fact that not only did Risa have a security system that tracked who came in and who came out of the house, but her next door neighbor also had a security system.
What Legion didn't know is that at the time I had a security system. Anytime the front door, the garage door, or the back door was open, basically any entry point, anytime it was open or closed, it would send me a text message notification. So when he's telling me all this, I'm looking at my phone and I see a notification where the front door was opened and it was shut all within the same minute. So for example, if it says front door open at 1 p.m., front door closed at 1 p.m. So whatever he did was within those 60 seconds. Legion has also told me that he watched him drive out of the neighborhood, which means because of the way the house was set up, the townhouse, he would have still been outside watching this. I could be wrong, but something in me was like, that would take more than 60 seconds. So also what he didn't know, we didn't have a Ring door camera, but my neighbor did. And her Ring door camera caught my driveway. So I texted her and I said, hey, were you home? And she said, no, I wasn't. What's up? Everything good? And I said, can you look at your security system and see if there was a car that came to my house at such and such time? But I was like, is there any way that your security camera caught if someone came to my house at this time on Saturday? She's like, yeah, sure, I'll look. And so Maybe about a couple of hours later, she texted me back and said, hey, I looked at the camera, but I didn't see anything. Nobody came to the house. So now here we are, a month and a half married. And now is when I'm like, why the fuck did he make that up?
So he's lied about closing in on a house, he's lied about buying her a car, and now, for some reason, he's deciding to lie about the fact that one of her exes showed up unannounced to their house. And for what? What could he possibly gain out of doing this to her all the time? Now, I honestly, genuinely do not know how this keeps getting more and more terrible, but this is a man we're talking about, okay? They will always find a way to outdo themselves. So, after that, she comes back home from work and she sees a gift on the bench. Surprise, surprise, it's a surprise trip to her dream destination.
So I get home from work. This is the beginning of March. I get home from work, and on the counter is a folder with like a little bow on it. And I'm like, oh, what is this? Is this like mail? Like, was this something that you got at work? He's like, nah, it's a surprise for you. I open up the folder. Inside the folder is like a trip itinerary. A trip for two to go from Atlanta to London. The month on there was like July. So it was a summer trip. So he tells me, I'm going to take you to London. He was like, I wanted to take you for your birthday, but certain things fell through. He was like, so this summer in July, we're going to go to London. He was like, I've already made a reservation for us to stay at the Savoy.
But this time, he didn't have to lie to get out of taking her on this trip. Why? Well, not because he actually kept his promise for once and actually took her to London, but because the entire time that he's promising to buy a new house, the entire time he's promising to buy a new car and take her on trips to Europe, he's literally cheating on her through Facebook Messenger.
So one day, this is mid-March, going like around March 20th. So we're heading towards the end of the month. So he was in the shower and he received a text message on his phone from a woman. The text message, because it was a preview, so the text message was something where if you didn't know the context of the text thread, you could either go left or you could go right with it. I see that he has Facebook Messenger downloaded, and obviously it shows you the number of unread messages in the icon. So it showed that he had like 5 unread messages. So I clicked on it, just being nosy. And what do my wondering astigmatism eyes see? So in his Facebook Messenger is about 7 women. One in particular said, when are you gonna come get this? Y'all know what I'm talking about. So I clicked on that one first. And I'm reading through the thread. And so she's saying, when are you gonna come get this? But earlier in the thread, or further back in the thread, he had asked her, when are you gonna give me? So I'm reading these messages, and what is interesting is that the person I am married to is not the person in these messages. Like, this man was on some nasty shit.
So then, in part 25, she decides that she doesn't want to rely on this man as much, and she wants to become much more financially independent. And she applied for a new job that she gets a call back from. And in order to get this job, she needs some background information from not only her, but from her spouse as well. And when they ask for Legion's social security number, he refuses to give it to her, even though it's a better paying job, which benefits them both.
I was hitting the pavement hard trying to find another job. I was applying to all kinds of places. Got a phone call from my current job. So this is how I ended up in my current job. Got a phone call. They had sent me an email with a background packet. The background packet was long and extensive. But in the background packet, it asked for my spouse's full name, my spouse's date of birth, and my spouse's social security number. So I showed it to Legion and I was like, I need your social because, I'm applying for this job. It's a great job. It's way more money. And, we're talking about moving anyway to Cobb County. So this, this is a God thing. He did not want to give me his social. I showed him the paperwork where I was like, look, because we are married, I can't lie on here. So help me. So he writes down his social security number on the background packet. And I looked at it one day, just going through it, just making sure I didn't really miss anything. All T's were crossed, all I's were dotted. And I looked at his social, and something about the social seemed different than the social security number that I remember seeing when we did our marriage license. But back to the background. So once again, when I ran the background the second time with his second social, it showed me states of Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island. And that's all that I saw in terms of addresses. I didn't see anything for California. So by this point, we're moving into May of 2021. Things are starting to reopen. One of the things that reopened was San Diego State. So I called San Diego State. I called the registrar's office. Someone did answer, and there was instructions on how to request a transcript. I was able to try to request it online. You needed the student's name, and I believe you also need their social. And when I typed it in, it said no results found. I believe that I sent an email asking, this person is saying that they were a student there. Can you verify it? The response I got was there were no records found with that social security number. So I'm like, okay. I asked him about it.
And so she ends up confronting him about it, rightfully so. And you want to know what this man says to her? Seriously? That there's no record of him because he's a private citizen. What the fuck does that mean?
So I asked Legion, what's the deal about San Diego State? He was like, what are you talking about? And I said, why is there no records of you there? I just came right out and said it. Without missing a beat, this man said, well, I was a private citizen. What the fuck does that mean? And what he said is that when he started at San Diego State, his father paid money so that, okay, it's important I say this with a straight face. His father paid money so that his name and social would not be publicized and he would be considered a private citizen. He said that he had a card where all he had to do was show the card. He does not have to give his name. He does not have to give any information because he had that card. He said so San Diego State would not have any record of him, but he was in fact a student there.
Class? Have you met anybody in your life that says they're a private citizen? Have you met anybody in your life that doesn't have a social security number because they're a private citizen? And again, that circles back to when he said that he won a championship in a football league. How could you have possibly been a part of that football league? Now, here's where things start to get genuinely sinister. Because you think to yourself, surely there's a line. Yes, this man is a pathological liar, but there has to be a line that exists that one would never cross. But you would be wrong, as I was wrong.
So at one point in May, it was close to mid-May, he calls me from work He calls me from work, calls me while I'm at work, and tells me that he got a phone call from his stepson. The phone call from his stepson, the stepson was crying and was just absolutely distraught. And I'm at work in my office like, what's going on? And he says to me that the stepson informed him that his stepdaughter passed away, that she died from COVID. The stepson, this is the story. The stepson found her in her apartment because they had not heard from her for a couple of days. And she was unresponsive. He called the ambulance. They pronounced her dead when she got to the hospital. So he was calling to tell me that she had died. And he was also calling to ask me if I would object to him giving his ex-wife $2,000 towards the funeral.
So, because this is an incredibly serious situation and should not be taken lightly, and because Legion has already lied to Risa countless times in the past before, she wanted to confirm herself if this was the truth. So she obtained the mother's number. The mother's number of the stepdaughter that was supposedly dead. And just listen to their phone call.
So I had the phone number, went back to work. My really good friend was like, you better call her. You can use my phone, but call her. So I called her. She answered. Let me use aliases. And the conversation went like this. May I please speak with Barbara? This is Barbara. Barbara, this is Shirley. Shirley who? This is Shirley Jones. I am the wife of Legion. Silence. Then she starts laughing. And she said to me, and I quote, "If you were calling me, then I know it's bad."
So immediately, the mother is laughing just by simply hearing Legion's name. So I think you already know where this is going. Especially because if a mother's daughter just died, they would not be laughing.
And so, again, conversation went on. And so finally, we were getting ready to get off the phone. And before we got off the phone, I said to her, I said, if everything is a lie, I said, I have one question for you. And she said, sure. I said, how is your daughter?
The daughter was fine. The daughter was alive. There was no discovery of a body. There was no funeral because she was healthy. He genuinely lied about the death of his own stepdaughter for $2,000. That is how low that man went, just for $2,000.
So I asked her, how was your daughter? She said, my daughter's fine. And I said, okay. She said, what did he say about my daughter? And I will be honest with y'all, I didn't have the heart to tell her.
Now, finally, in part 32, we finally discover what her breaking point was and what made her file for divorce with this man that she should have never been married to begin with. So what made her finally snap is the fact that at the same time that he's supposed to be devoted to her, he's texting and meeting up with a sex worker.
So, beginning of June, he is in the bed, sleep. And I get his phone. I ain't gonna lie. I got his phone. But he did not wipe the phone, if y'all know what I mean. Take all the data off. He did not do that. So I look through the phone and I see this would have been text messages. Text messages between him and a woman named Peaches. I go back to the beginning of the text messages. This is on the work phone. This is the beginning of June of 2021. I go back to the text messages the beginning of the text messages between him and Peaches. Yes, that was her name, Peaches. I'm reading the thread because he's knocked out sleep. So I'm in the bathroom with the door locked, reading the thread. And what I can tell is that he met Peaches on POF. If you don't know what POF is, it is Plenty of Fish, a dating website. And apparently Peaches was, there's no nice way to say it. Apparently Peaches was a prostitute. So the reason why I say that is because in the text messages, she's listing the prices. So he asked for a job. This is in the text messages. She told him it would be like $40. He asked how much would it be for oil. She said it would be $60. Because it was $60 and $80. One was the price with a condom, one was the price without one. Next message I see would have been from a few weeks prior to the date of this. So this was the beginning of June. The message is from sometime beginning of May, where he is thanking her and says to her, thank you so much. That was really great. I hope I can see you again.
And finally, she confronts his ass in that damn bed. And she finally says what we've all been waiting for. I don't think this is gonna work out.
Anyway, so I go in there and I just calmly sit on the edge of the bed. And I was like, can we talk? And he was like, yeah, what's up? I said to him, Legion. Obviously, I called him his name. Legion. I said, I'm going to ask you something. I just want you to be honest with me. So he starts, I can already see in his eyes, he's about to get defensive. And I was like, calm. Because this is the tone I had. Calm. I said, you never went to San Diego State, did you? He rolls his eyes and he's like, I said, calm down. Watch your tone. I said, you never went to San Diego State. I said, you never lived in California, did you? And he said, of course I lived in California. He's like, I fucking showed you the house I had in California. He said, and I told you about San Diego State. I was a private citizen. My dad paid for me to be a private citizen. And I said, okay. I said, I called San Diego State. And he looked at me. His eyes were like empty. Like he wasn't shocked. He wasn't like, oh my God. He was just more like, okay. I said, they have no record of you. I said, they have no record because you never went. You never been to California. So at this point, I'm very calm. And I'm just stating, I said, you never been to California. I said, I bet you've only lived in Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island. At this point, now there's a little emotion behind the eyes. And I said, I don't think that this is going to work. And he said, what, the marriage? He was like, so what you saying? You don't want to be married to me anymore? And I said, I don't want to be married to you anymore. I said, we need to go our separate ways. We tried, but we need to go our separate ways. The way that I am talking to you all is exactly how I was talking to him. And so he was like, that's not what marriage is. Marriage is, you have to fight for what you want. I said, I don't want this.
That's not what marriage is. You know what marriage also isn't? Cheating on your wife 2 times with 2 separate women. That's not what marriage is either.
And so he was like, I'm not giving up on the 2 of us. I said, you don't have a choice. I said, I think that you should call your brother or your sister now. And I think that you need to pack a bag. And I think you need to get the fuck out my house. And he was like, I don't really have time for this. I don't feel well. I said, I don't care. You need to get out of my house. Basically what happened was At first, he refused. He wasn't moving fast enough for me.
How are you gonna have the audacity to refuse to leave a house that isn't even in your name? You moved in there because you're a bum. So then, for some reason, he gets his aunt on the phone, as if suddenly Risa would hear out what the aunt has to say and suddenly change her mind. Like, what did you think that was gonna do? And here, in this exact moment, he says one sentence that makes her snap completely. Because you know how she says that she's been calm the entire time? No more. He doesn't deserve that anymore. Not after this.
And so he called his aunt. And his aunt was on speakerphone. Let me preface that. She was on speakerphone. And so she was like, you know, what's going on? And he was like, my wife don't want me no more. She claimed that I'd be lying to her. I ain't never lied to her. When I heard this, something in me snapped. When he said to his aunt, I ain't never lied to her, I snapped. The calmness left. The amount of rage that was in me. I could have fought every member of the Kansas City Chiefs and beat every last one of their asses. I went off. I went off. I went off so bad that first of all, every part of me was shaking. I called my mom. My mom was on speakerphone. I was cussing like a sailor. My mom finally said, put him on the phone. So I gave him the phone. So my mother gets on the phone and she says to him, Legion, she called him by name. She said, I am not there to control my daughter. She said, in the name of Jesus, get your stuff and get out that house because I think she might kill you. Get out of the house. She's on my phone. His aunt is on his phone. His aunt said, nephew, come home. Home for her was Philly. She said, I'll send you money. Come home. Leave that house right now, she said, because I think that woman is about to kill you.
And look, I literally can't blame her for feeling that way. Because if I was in Reese's situation, I would have done the exact same thing. And I know that every single other woman in my life would have done the exact same thing. That man would not have left that room alive for what he's put me through. And look, I know that is nowhere near the end of the story, but I am going to be ending the video right here because I don't want you guys to be giving your support to me for this story. I want you guys to give your support to her story to her. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Mwah. I love you all so much and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye guys!